Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, obviously still on the road, but today in 23andMe news, I hate to say I told you so, they're digging their own grave because this just got a whole lot worse, and quite frankly, how they've handled this I think is absolutely disgusting. Now, let's basically start here, and basically Lewis Madison of Tech Radar had a really good write-up, so I'm cribbing from him just a little bit here, and basically 23andMe just literally in the last 24 hours has said that basically cyber attacks were targeting customers for months, and they didn't realize this was happening. And I'm going to talk about that after I get through the foundation here. Now, according to the notification letter they sent to basically Attorney General of California, accounts belonging to users of 23andMe were basically getting hit between April and September of last year, and basically in a series of brute force attacks. Not just one, which was the understanding that essentially we had when 23andMe initially talked about this, but this had been going on for months, April to September. That's month 4 to month 10. Do the math. Now, millions of people's genetic data was leaked onto the dark web by threat actors after a total of 14,000 users had their accounts breached. That's according to the SEC filing that 23andMe had. It's called an 8K filing. Now, 23andMe only realized that these attacks were taking place in October, meaning more than 6 months after they started, when this stolen data was being promoted on an official subreddit and also on underground forums. Now, some of this data also leaked on a breach forums back in August, before they even knew this was happening, and they weren't aware of it, apparently. Now, these basically attacks were made possible thanks to email addresses and passwords that were leaked previously in unrelated breaches. That apparently has remained consistent, meaning 23andMe is basically saying, well, you're using the password for everything else, same email, same password, so they logged right in. Now, the attackers obviously brute forced by virtue of that. Now, in a letter sent to the victims, if you recall, and I did an entire video, podcast, and radio segment on this, 23andMe laid the blame on their users. And I specifically said there, this is obviously an issue because this is a shared responsibility. And we'll talk about that in a second. So, the data that's out there, other than genetic data, is names, birth year, self-reported location, relationship to others, and a percentage of the DNA that they share with these others as well. Not to mention all of this genomic stuff. So, here's the thing, in a data breach like this with a public-facing portal that you have millions of customers, it's a shared responsibility. I said this in my previous segment weeks ago, that while 23andMe is basically saying it's not us, it's you users, you're lazy and careless for using the same password, that's the meta message there. I mentioned it's the same. It's basically a shared responsibility. Were there intrusion detection systems? Where were there intrusion prevention systems? Where was a cybersecurity team that was looking for these kinds of things? You can monitor the dark web. You can go to the breach forums. You can look for exposed usernames and passwords of your employees and others as well. Why weren't you enforcing policies that required users to sign up to enable MFA automatically, which would have probably have thwarted this entire thing? This is a shared issue, and they kept a lid on it. And similar to LastPass, this is a huge issue because when companies are going through these data breaches and they're not transparent, they ultimately end up losing trust. I have literally been in boardrooms and meetings with executives going through data breaches, and I always advise, get out in front of it. Be as communicative as you can. Basically, trust is going to be an all-time low in your business, whatever your business is, whatever you're doing for your clients or your customers. But if you're being transparent and you're letting them know as you're going through what you're doing, what you found, how you're protecting them, you're going to start to rebuild that confidence. But if you go out there and say, yeah, nothing happened, and it comes out later because of the news or of anything else, trust is shattered. You look bad. And 23andMe looks absolutely horrible. It looks like they have no security controls whatsoever, and that is not true. I'm sure they do. But why don't they have public-facing ones? Why aren't they enforcing something when you're essentially giving them what is some of the most intimate things that you have, which is your DNA? No two DNAs are alike in people, even twins, from what I understand. And so you're giving that away basically to this. It's essentially healthcare. Why wouldn't you be enforcing proper security controls right out of the gate for your customers? And I'll tell you why. Same with Facebook. It's because they want to get you signed up and logged in as easy as humanly possible. They don't want to make it frustrating. They want you to have a good experience at the expense of your security and therefore at the expense of your privacy, because now we've got a breach of millions. This is a huge problem. The entire industry should basically wake up to this, and because they're not regulated under HIPAA in the same way that healthcare clinics are and healthcare providers are, we have a double issue here that really needs to be addressed. So I'll leave it at that, but understand if you've basically gone through 23andMe, you've sent in your DNA. One, I've done written articles on this. I've talked about this, about how your DNA can potentially be bought, even by Chinese cutouts. I've done a whole thing on that. But now understand their cybersecurity failed. Their threat detection failed. They didn't see this coming when they should have been proactively there and proactively on it, not just for their sake, but for yours as well. And so that is your unfortunate news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.